亲大德圣听，为此法非济一切众生，亲赞妙法论教导我们如何了生脱死离苦得乐殊胜无生。Will the Sangha regret virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings? Please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto suchedoye alahudi sanmyao sanputoshi.
Namo sarando sujedoye aladi samya sambuddhoje.
Okay, let's all recite together. Wu shang shen shen wei miao fa, bai qian wan jie nan zao yu, wo jin jian wan de shou chi, yuan jie ru lai zhen shi yi. Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master and Dharma friends, Shifu Shangren, Gowei Shishong, Dajia Hao. I'm Heng Sure, and I'm here in Gold Coast, Queensland at Gold Coast Dharma Realm, also known as Shurangama Sages Monastery. And it's Sunday, May 5th, here in Gold Coast. And it's Saturday night, May 4th, in Berkeley, California, where many of you are listening. And this is really an important part of May. Yesterday, in California today, it is the anniversary of the Wu Si Yundong, right? The May 4th movement. And we in Australia have already reached Cinco de Mayo. So it's nice to be able to celebrate and to have Homero there with us and his family, including his little boy who's not so little anymore. That's really fun. I see he's helping Dad set up blankets and just pretty much be a big help in the Buddha Hall. We're glad he's there. That's the next generation of people coming to listen to the Dharma. So at the same time, this webcast is being sent across the great Chinese firewall. People are listening via yy.com and also Weiho. And if you have a VPN, you can listen in on YouTube as this webcast. So that's what we're about. We're going to be investigating the Flower Garland Sutra, and I'm here to be your guide, your host. I likewise was guided and hosted in years past by Master Hsuan Hua, and I'm sure Master Hua would say, and indeed, he was one more step in the line of great teachers who made it important to find out what the Buddha said, particularly in the Mahayana Sutras, particularly in the Flower Garland Sutra, particularly in the 10 stages, the Dashabhumi, the Shirdipin, the 10 stages chapter of the Flower Garland Sutra. That's what we're about. So what we're going to do first to get going is I'm going to show off my desktop. Can you all see my desktop? Jin Chuan Shi, can you Are you able to see my desktop there?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
we can see it.
You can.
You can
Good.
see all the
Okay.
Chinese monks with Master Hua in the center. Is that the one?
Yes, yeah. You can. It's interesting. You can see that, but just the way it works here with our technology, the Dharma friends here in the Gold Coast can't see it unless they stood behind me and looked over my shoulder. But it's the picture of Master Hua in 1987, surrounded by the 100 monks, nuns, and lay people of the Chinese Buddhist delegation come to do the very first Shui Lu Kong Fa Hui, the water, land, and air soul mass, we're coming to call it, at City of 10,000 Buddhists. First time that most longrong, most adorned and solemn of ceremonies was held in the U.S. There we are, and there's a historic picture. When I showed the monks at Bailin Si and Zhenru Si and Lingyan Si this photo, they all went, oh, look at all the Lao Pusa there. There's a whole generation of the monks who brought Buddhism back to China in the 20th century and the 21st century, who now, one by one, are disappearing. So there's also young monks here who were just in their early 20s then, who have now become the Dade, the greatly virtuous masters in China. So this is quite a historic photo. Here we are. Okay, as we get our sutra lecture underway, I would like to invoke spiritual presence. I'd like to invite everybody to join with me. And when we come back to our text, we'll be on page 72 and 73. Let's go to the top of our text, where we find the words Na Mo Da Fang, Fang Fo, Hua Yan Jing, Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pusa, homage to the Buddha's Flower Garland Sutra of great expansive teachings in the ocean-wide flower garland assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. There's a long tradition that says when you invoke a sacred name, that presence arrives. And it has to do, I guess, with opening our hearts to that sound. And these are sounds, the vibrations of which have been echoing for time without counting in human consciousness. So when we put these sounds and vibrations into our flow, into our stream, into our mental awareness, we are inviting, welcoming them to come and bless our assembly. So let's do that. That's the melody. Nam Mo Ta Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui O Pu Sa Nam Mo Ta Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui O Pu Sa Nam Mo Ta Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai O Pu Sa Na Fang Guang Po Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai O Pu Sa Na Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai O Pu Sa. Two more. Namo Da Fang Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai O Pu Sa. Namo Da Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai O Pu Sa. So we have invited the great storytellers to arrive, to bring with them the story of the Bodhisattva. What is a Bodhisattva? How does he or she behave, think, speak? They say in the Vajra Sutra, how do they abide? How do they stand? How do they walk? How do they subdue their minds? That's a key question. How do bodhisattvas deal with all their false thoughts? Do they have any? Well, no. The Buddha answered that one in the Vajra Sutra. If they have thoughts, particularly of the self and of others and of living beings and a lifespan, then they are not able to practice as bodhisattvas practice. But the promise is that with effort, practicing the way the Buddha practiced, doing the things that the Buddha did, those thoughts vanish bit by bit, kind of like snow on a hot winter's afternoon. When the sun comes out, even though the snow has fallen, once it meets the sunshine, it melts away, goes back to water. Those false thoughts go back to the nature of the mind. So that's the promise, right? In between is all the hard work and the practice. We are looking at the 9th stage, 第九地 in Chinese, and it's about a bodhisattva becoming a teacher of Dharma. The Chinese say a 大法师, he becomes a massive teacher of Dharma, right? A significant teacher of Dharma, a big Dharma master. And it describes how one gets there, what you do in order to merit that designation. And step by step, our bodhisattva has our exemplar, right? We have a paradigm, a kind of a template of a bodhisattva here in the sutra, and we learn what it takes to get to that stage ourselves. These are lessons, instructions meant for use, meant for practice, right? It's not theory. This is not philosophy. This is a how-to manual. So our bodhisattva is working on eloquence now. 4 kinds of, they say, eloquence without any obstruction. The sutra calls it wisdom without obstruction, 无碍智, but the very same list in other parts of the Mahayana are called 四种无碍辩才, 4 kinds of unobstructed eloquence. Has to do with what? Speaking, teaching. How do you teach in a way that people get it? Not only do they get it, they like it. Not only do they get it and like it, they want to practice it. They want to imitate it. That's the idea of this eloquence. And there are 4 kinds, and we've been hearing about them for a couple weeks now because we've gotten 10 varieties of it. We had the last 2 to date, the last 2. One of them, what are the 4? Let's review just a bit. The 4 are eloquence in Dharma. Your principles always relate to everybody's awakened nature. That's where those principles are found. The second is eloquence in phrasing. Right? I'm sorry, mistake, scratch that. Eloquence in meaning. So the meanings that you speak connect with the principles that you've identified and teased out of the nature. So you can relate it to politics, you can relate it to science, you can relate it to nature, you can relate it to relationships, you can relate it to commerce, you can relate it to the arts. Why? Of eloquence. And those principles produce all these different meanings. What does it mean? It's not meaningless. It is meaningful to the individual from their perspective, from their wherever they are. That's the skill the Bodhisattva wields. Number 3 is eloquence in phrasing. And this has to do with the size of the thesaurus in the mind of the speaker, right? The thesaurus, which is, can you say it a bunch of different ways to make people happy, to make people notice, to make people get it? That's the skill of the Bodhisattva. That's 词无碍辩, right? He's got phrasing. He can say it in a bunch of languages. He could dance it. He could whistle it. He could mime it, pantomime it, and the gestures would connect completely to the heart of the listener. And finally, the last one is called 乐说无爱辩 无爱智. It's this joy in speaking. It's the spark that makes it come alive. Why do some singers just put the song in your heart and you'll never forget it? Well, it has to do with that quality, that magical, invisible, but real gift of light that comes with the song. Same notes, same human voice. You're hearing it with your same ears, but, oh, it's different when he sings it, when she sings it. That's the joy in speech. Okay, got it. Those are the 4. All right. Last 2 in our list of 10, we're going to start with, we talked about vehicles last week, right? We're going to start today with the 父子法无爱智 知一切菩萨恒 智恒法恒, that one. Okay, this is hung as a noun, right? Not xing as a verb. Ready? Those of you who can read Chinese, you're invited to read along with me if you care to. We're not going to do call and response sequential. We're just going to do the read it once because of the latency and the distance coming from down under to up over where you all are. Here we go. Ready? 父子法无爱智 知一切菩萨恒 智恒法恒 智随正 亦无爱智 知实地分位亦区别 此无爱智 说地道无区别相 乐说无爱智 说一一地无变恒相 We did it. There it is. Here's the English. Ready? Furthermore, with the unobstructed wisdom of dharmas, he knows all the practices of bodhisattvas, wisdom practices, dharma practices, and wisdom certification. With the unobstructed wisdom of meanings, he knows the different meanings of the individual positions of the 10 stages. With the unobstructed wisdom of phrasing, he expresses how the way of the stages has the attribute of no distinctions. With the unobstructed wisdom of delight in speaking, he explains each stage as being characterized by boundlessly many practices. Yes, here we are. Okay, now those are the 4, and this is number 9 out of 10. So we're the Flower Garland Sutra always gives us lists of 10 items in a list. The teaching of totality. And that's maybe one of the things that scares people away from this text, but when we understand it as a manual, a technique handbook, a teaching book, a PDF that you download to tell you how to put your IKEA bench together or bed together or desk together, that's what it is. So, of course, the 10 mean when you have followed those 10 instructions, you have absorbed a bodhisattva's practices, right? So it's very thorough. Okay. Furthermore, with the unobstructed wisdom of dharmas, number 1 in the list of eloquences, he knows bodhisattvas' practices. He knows what bodhisattvas do. Wisdom practices, what would that be? That would be things like contemplating the elements in your body as you meditate. The solid parts, the warm parts, the liquid in your body, the spaces, the air, the places where things pass through. Earth, air, fire, and water, as you meditate, you contemplate them and see that those 4 essential elements merge with their larger bodies on the planet. That's a wisdom practice. So what you do, you realize it's not me. There's no self attached to the bones in my body or my teeth, or my ears, the heart, the cartilage, right? There's no self attached to the saliva in my mouth or the moisture in my eye. There's no self, there's no me there. It's not me, and it's not mine. And by doing this progressive investigation of the elements in the body while you meditate, you understand more about what's called the form skandha, the body, the rupa skandha, this component that I meditate with. I haven't meditated without that body even once in my entire life. And it's helpful and useful to contemplate in this way to get some space around that need for me to be the most important, only necessary individual in the center of the universe. You get some space around that, and you can let that go and enjoy and truly listen to and pay attention to and attend to others' needs and sounds and wisdom. So there's a wisdom practice. Dharma practices, different, right? Dharma practices have to do with principle. So a principle practice would be really, really attending to cause and effect. Recognizing that everything we do in the language of service space sends out ripples, right? And that's kind of the energy in a field reality of our bodies and our metabolisms, our breathing, our heartbeats. Intake, compression, power, exhaust. Intake, compression, power, exhaust, right? The strokes of a combustion engine. We live that way, and we are constantly interacting with beings all around us who also live that way. So a Dharma practice would be working hard so that my body, mouth, and mind send out that power and exhaust, and the intake, the consumption, and then the metabolism, and then the residue that goes out, and the silence before the next intake. Do it harmlessly. Live with ahimsa as your code. May peace prevail on earth is your byword. And so that the ripples that I send out can do as little harm as possible and can bring benefit ultimately to others. That would be a Dharma practice. Now, wisdom certification, what's that? This is one. We have a practice going on here, a series at Gold Coast Dharma Realm. Saturday nights, we have our family Dharma night. And one of the things that we've created is what we're calling Master Hsuanhua's catalog of practices, Dharma ABCs, which is what? The idea is we've got a lot of teachings that came not from the sutras, but from simply being around a teacher. Master Hua lived from the age of 19 to his last breath in the Sangha. Before that, he was in formation, living beside his mother's graveside. And in that tradition, as he lived in the various monasteries and retreats, and even while traveling, he was surrounded by fellow monks and nuns. He was absorbing the millennium-old, 2,000-year-old practice of Buddhism in China. He carried those impressions, those practices, those expressions to us here in the West, to Australia. The other day, a visit from a monk from Sydney said, "Oh, look, there's Master Hsuanhua's picture, the first Mahayana monk in Australia." And I went, yeah, I guess that's true, isn't it? Master Hua arrived here in 1961, and I didn't realize that he is being called the first Mahayana monk in Australia. Maybe so, that's interesting. So as he lived all those years in the Sangha, he absorbed the way we talk about the Dharma in the tradition. It's kind of the best way to say it, in the tradition. not from the sutras. That tradition has lots of phrases, lots of habitual images. And we here at Gold Coast Dharma Realm are bringing them forward. We're reviewing them. Because you hear them in Shifu's Dharma talks, but you wonder, where did they come from? What are those things? Let me give you an example. One is Fa Shan Hui Ming. That's our latest one. Dharma body, wisdom, life. Pure Chinglish, 4 Chinese words, 4 English words. Dharma body, wisdom, life. What is your Fa Shan Hui Ming? Your Dharma body. My Dharma body? I never thought of it. Master Hua would refer to that a lot. He would say, oh, this is good for your Fa Shan Hui Ming, if you cultivate merit and virtue. And so that's an example of what we're calling Master Hua's Dharma ABCs, or his glossary of practices, kind of catalog. Catalog is the word, the catalog of practices. Certification, this third item in our sutra here today that we need to pay attention to, but are hard to find evidence for. Hard to find instances of it to understand what it must mean, which is what? On paper, so you can see them on virtual paper. And put them down on my, let's see here. I'll bring up a notes pad. Here's our notes. Notes, there it is. Up it comes. This is from last week. Okay, the unobstructed. Okay, here we go. 4 phases of cultivation to success in the Avatamsaka Sutra. What are they? I'll put the Chinese down first. Xin. Second, Jie. Wrong Jie. Jie, third tone. Did it again. Jie, J-I-E, J-I-E. I want number 2. There we go. Third step, Xing. Fourth step, Zheng. So to do what the Avatamsaka Sutra lays out for us as the path to the successful completion of Buddhahood, we need 4. Those are the Chinese words I've just put down. Xin is a 4th tone. Jie is a 3rd tone. Xing is a 2nd tone. Zheng is a 4th tone. And what do they mean? Here we go. You have to believe it is the case. You have to understand its application to its practice. Understand its practice. Understand it in application, I guess. You have to actually go practice according to the principle. Believe that the principle is the case. Then you have to go realize it in reality, realize it in your life through certification. There's the key word. To realize it through certification. Now, this is our word here, right? It said, what is the Bodhisattva? He knows the practices of Bodhisattvas, their wisdom practices, their Dharma practices, and wisdom's certification. Now that's the key word, the certification. Zhengming, Shifu would say. Now, what's the point? You can't claim that you are a Buddha. You can't claim that you are enlightened. You can't claim even that the gods come and talk to you and make offerings to you. Well, I should hope you wouldn't claim that, right? So there are historically in the Buddha's world people who do these things. They say they make claims to accomplishments that are not theirs, right? Now, in the bhikshu precepts and the bhikshuni precepts that we take as monks and nuns, to do so breaks one of the four parajika precepts they say there's no return from breaking those precepts. If you make claims to sagehood when you have not been certified by someone else, big mistake. The Buddha flagged this and said this is not okay to do. This is called da wang yu, to transgress in major false speech, tell the big lie that you have realized something you haven't realized. Now, what do you do instead, doing it wrong? You do it right by finding someone to certify you. And there's our word right there, zheng. This bodhisattva knows wisdom's certification. He understands the necessity of finding someone who has already, they say, gone through, so that you can prove your own accomplishment. So that someone who is qualified can say, yes, indeed, this person has done the work, has realized. How important was it? Well, has anybody read the Sixth Patriarch Sutra or heard it explained? If so, there you are. The Fifth Patriarch was looking for someone to carry on the robe and the bowl, and he held a poetry contest to see if he could find the right one. And the monk that everyone thought was going to get it didn't, because why? He had not. Externally, all the monks in the monastery assumed that Master Shen Xiu was going to be the Dharma heir. He was going to get it. The robe and the bowl was his. They didn't even bother to write a poem. From the outside, they assumed that he was qualified. The Fifth Patriarch looked and said, nope, I will not certify you as the next holder of the Buddha's lineage because you haven't done it. You haven't made that change. Now, here's what's interesting. What's the difference? Right? What does the Fifth Patriarch see that tells him, you're the one? Well, the Sixth Patriarch had it. And he wasn't a monk at the time. He was a layman. He didn't speak Mandarin. He hadn't gone to school. He hadn't learned to read and write. He had it. He had the very thing that the Fifth Patriarch was looking for. So the Avatamsaka says, believing is not enough. Saying it so, even understanding how to put it into practice is not enough. To practice it, to meditate until your zafu breaks and all the K-pop comes out on the mat, not enough. You have to actually find someone who has gone through to look at you and know that indeed you are the one. So that's very interesting, isn't it? That this is, according to the Avatamsaka, a key component of realizing Buddhahood. Now, why do you suppose this is? I mean, how many certifiers are there? Right? Somebody comes to the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, rings the doorbell. Hi, would you certify my enlightenment? Jin Chuan Shi, would you mind? Do you have a minute? I just need a minute because I'm enlightened and I need you to tell me that I am. If you don't want to, email the other monk and ask him. So, or I'll send in a YouTube video and you can certify it online. There must be 3 out of 5 stars enough, or do you need 4 out of 5 stars? So, you just all kinds of goofy situations come to mind as how people, and indeed, people who know Master Hua's story from his time in Chinatown at Buddhist Lecture Hall, there was a line of people showing up, asking Shifu to certify them. And one famous story about, was it Joe Miller? Joe Miller was a teacher of meditation in San Francisco, and I can't guarantee it was Joe Miller. It might have been Sufi Sam Lewis. But somebody showed up and claimed that they were enlightened. And Master Hua happened to have a sword, a kung fu sword, in his hand, or there on his Dharma seat. So he said, "Oh, really? Oh, good. Oh, I'm glad you're enlightened. That's great. We needed somebody enlightened here." And he pulled out this sword and he pulled it from the scabbard and held it up. And he said, "Now, somebody who's enlightened doesn't attach to anything, not even their own head. Come on over. I want to see if you're attached to your head. Come on up. We'll check." And the guy just kind of, his eyes get bigger. Oh, there's this crazy old Chinese man. Does he mean it? And so Shifu got down with his sword and chased after the guy. He chased him around the Buddha hall. "Come on back. I want to see if you're enlightened. I want to certify you. You don't want to get certified to enlightenment? Oh, you must be attached to stuff, I guess. Maybe you're not enlightened after all," he said. So that's one of many encounters. I guess if it was Joe Miller for that story, Dharma Master Heng Sure would know that story. And Heng Lai would know that story. He came back later and thanked Shifu for showing him that he still had some ways to go, and he was a good. He attended regularly, attended the sutra lectures a lot, so he's a good guy. But without any history, without any context, how would we know what does it mean to, quote, be enlightened, right? So here is our sutra saying that this Bodhisattva does what? This Bodhisattva knows, I put it down, there we go, drag it up here. He knows with the wisdom of dharmas, he knows wisdom's certification, okay? So all of that is to explain that you can't claim that you're a Buddha. You can't claim that you're a Bodhisattva. You can't claim that you're an Arhat. I mean, you can, there's nothing stopping you, but nobody who knows anything about it is going to pay attention to you. You can make any claim you want, but words are empty, right? There's more to it. So what is it finally? That's a little bit mysterious. Master Shen Xiu, with all his virtue and goodness, they say he was a very good monk. He wasn't there. It's more than words, right? It's not an idea either. You have to actually transform consciousness to wisdom through the process of what? Precepts, concentration, and wisdom. It's the same old story. You have to change your character in line with the Buddha's description of a true human being. You have to put in the hours of practice. And then that change, that transformation happens. And it happens in an instant, they say. But without the hard work, without preparing the ground, when the autumn comes, there's no harvest, right? To swap our metaphor around. With the unobstructed wisdom of meanings, he knows the different meanings of the individual positions of the 10 stages. Oh my goodness, we've been working on the 10 stages so long. And I've thought at times it'd be fun to just go through all 10 and give them like a one sentence hallmark, give them a key. So the first stage, I'm not going to do all, but what sticks in my mind, maybe those of you who've been with our series have different memories, different things spoke to you. But the first one is about happiness, stage of happiness, right? And the Bodhisattva in the stage of happiness is free of fear. There's no fear. And there are 5 kinds of fears that come up. Terror and anxiety and trembling, right? And the Bodhisattva doesn't fall, doesn't change in the face of these fearful states because he's happy, stage of happiness. In the second stage, second ground, it's about virtue. And that's where we get this incredible breakdown of the results of 10 evil deeds. If you kill, steal, or lust with the body, if you lie or gossip or scold or speak frivolously with your mouth, if you allow greed, anger, and wrong views with your mind, there are retributions that occur. And that list is the clearest set of descriptions of cause and effect I've ever heard. So, for example, in the second stage, they say, if you kill, you're free to kill. If you do, you can even lose your human body as a result, because you've deprived someone else of their rightful lifespan. Your own lifespan is shortened. But you might come back with a human body. And if you do, there's two retributions. One is your lifespan will be short. You won't live very long. Number two, while you're alive, you'll have a lot of illness. When I heard that, it was like click, click, click. I never thought of it that way. So creative minds put that principle into practice with the wisdom of meanings and said, I wonder if we could flip that around. If killing shortens my life and makes me sick, what about cherishing life, making conditions for people to live longer? Would that give me a long life and make me healthy? I wonder. Sutra doesn't say that, but it sure makes sense, right? So you just apply these principles. Like killing, there is also stealing and lust and then lying. And so 10, that's the second. Third stage has to do with vigor, with patience, I beg your pardon, has to do with patience because the stages follow the paramitas. Giving, virtue, and patience. And then when you get to the fourth stage, that's where psychic abilities, psychic powers, the 5 eyes, the 6 psychic penetrations, 6 psychic abilities are explained incredibly powerfully. So anybody wants to know about Shentong, this amazing aspect of cultivation, that's where you go. Go to the 4th stage. Anybody who wants to know about samadhi and hearing, the ability to hear sound, go to the 5th stage. Anybody who wants to know about the what some people call the crown jewel of the Buddha's teaching, which is pratitya samutpada, conditioned arising, 6th stage. That's the prajna, that's the wisdom stage. So, and so forth, right? 7th is about the beginning to make vows. The 8th is where the Bodhisattva reaches irreversibility, no further retreat, and avaivartika in Sanskrit, tuichuan. And at that point, consciousness completely flips over. And then we're at the 9th stage, and our Bodhisattva becomes a teacher. And to come, stay tuned for further developments, we get to the 10th stage, the stage of the Dharma cloud, the cloud of Dharma. And it's inconceivably vast and wonderful. So we'll get there. So what is that? That is the Bodhisattva, with the unobstructed wisdom of meanings, he knows the different meanings of the individual positions among the 10 stages. With the unobstructed wisdom of phrases, he expresses how the way of the stages has the attribute of no distinctions. What would we call that? Similarity, sameness. A distinction shows you the difference. To have the appearance of sameness, that means this Bodhisattva here is able to point out what doesn't change from 1st to 2nd to 3rd, all the way to the 10th. One of the things is he starts to see Buddhas in the 1st stage, and then the Buddhas that he sees are more and more and more, and he interacts with the Buddhas. When we get to the 8th stage, and the Bodhisattva realizes that irreversibility, patience when dharmas no longer arise, at that point, guess what? The Buddhas come and talk to him. The Buddhas say, go. Don't stop. Don't stop. Keep going. One more step, and you'll make it. Because there is, at that point, some risk that he won't. Reality turns inside out at the 8th stage. It's very hard to motivate yourself. There's just no reason to do it, because nothing is born, nothing dies. What's the point? The Buddhas say, go. Don't stop. So the Buddhas that he first sees at the beginning now interact. Amazing. I mean, that's the 10 stages, right? They really want bodhisattvas to emerge. So with the unobstructed wisdom of delight in speaking, he explains each stage as being characterized by boundlessly many practices. What is it on each stage? You go and do it. It's not just an idea. Hubba. Go bodhisattvas. I don't think it's the case that some Chinese author wrote these. I think the Buddha taught them because bodhisattva's ship, bodhisattvahood, bodhisattvaness is the highest expression of human nature at its very, very best. Altruistic, to be sure, maybe too good to be true. Only if you're a cynic. What is human nature's potential? Well, at this phase of it, it is human nature is being trained to be a great Dharma master, a great master of these principles. And the Buddha opened his nature and found them all there. It's a Dharma treasury. A treasury of Dharma is there in your awakened nature, waiting to have those treasures brought forth and circulated and made real. So that's what the Bodhisattva is doing here, learning how to do that. So, yeah, why not? There are people who will tell you that there is a primal Buddhism, a fundamental Buddhism, Heng Sure that is the only true Dharma. Everything else was a corruption. You drink the water, you know whether it's cold or hot, right? Not everybody sees the mountains beyond the clouds. Some people only look at their feet. Where's the value in dismissing others? I don't get that. 一人养鸡, right? You push others down so that you're the only one true standing. That's an affliction. That's the self at work, doing its dirty work, right? So I have no problem letting the Avatamsaka Sutra be the light that makes the darkness in my heart vanish, right? This is to have these sutras in the world, in English, in Chinese, in Vietnamese, in European Romance languages, in all the languages of the world. No harm in doing that. That's a wholesome thing to do. So even if I can take 1 teaspoon of the wisdom of this and I'm full, because that's all my capacity, right? That teaspoon has a flavor. That little amount is some of the best thoughts humans have ever thought. So I'm going to do what I can to keep it alive. And there's no value in causing others to think that this is somehow less than what it is. Certainly, it doesn't do to dismiss it before you know what it contains, right? And I think it's mostly the problem that people haven't touched the Avatamsaka Sutra much. The traditional thinking on it is too lofty, too philosophical, too much Sanskrit. Don't bother with it, right? Well, Master Hua said, nope. I'm going to give you 9 years of my life opening this text and letting you bathe, letting you swim in the wisdom ocean and try out these ideas because they make you a better person, at the very least, less selfish. Here we go. Last one of the 10. Are we ready? Let's take a look together at the last gathering of the 4 unobstructed eloquences. Here we go. 复次法无碍智，知一切如来一念成正觉，亦无碍智，知种种时、种种处等各差别。此无碍智，说成正觉差别。乐说无碍智，于一一句法无量劫说不尽。We heard it. How does it go in English? Ready? Moreover, with the unobstructed wisdom of dharmas, he knows how all Tathagatas accomplish right enlightenment in a single thought. With the unobstructed wisdom of meanings, he knows all the individual particulars of the various times, the various places, and so forth. With the unobstructed wisdom of phrasing, he speaks of the differences in the realization of proper enlightenment. With the unobstructed wisdom of delight in speaking, the Dharma in each and every sentence could be spoken of for limitlessly many eons without coming to an end. So this is graduation. This is the last step. And because it's at that elevated level, when I read this, I realize not my experience, right? So we can point to it, we can use images to describe it, but it's nothing that we understand until we actually get there. Number 1, unobstructed wisdom of dharmas. What does a bodhisattva know? He knows how Buddhas in a single thought accomplish right enlightenment. How does it happen? But it happens. It takes a single thought, a thought that has no covering, no shadow, no affliction, a thought in the mind as it is before ignorance, right? That mind, one thought, it all lights up. They say, what do they say? They say, if you're alive in the time of the Buddha, this is an experience you could know. Because why? Here's somebody whose mind is uncovered. His mind functions from the nature, no covering whatsoever, the Buddha. There's various sayings. There's one saying goes, various accounts, that's the word, that in the city of Shravasti, Feng De Cheng, abundant blessings, abundant virtue, that 1/4 of the people in the city of Shravasti actually heard the Buddha speak. 1 out of 4. 1/4 of the people in the city of Shravasti saw the Buddha's Sangha and may have seen him but didn't hear him speak. 1/4, they say, of the people in Shravasti heard of the presence of the Buddha and his Sangha somewhere across town, and a quarter of the people in Sravasti never saw him, never heard of him. Even though the Buddha was alive in the world, it was as if he wasn't. All right? So it's not that easy. Not that easy, even in the time of the Buddha. But my point is, in the time of the Buddha, in the Zheng Fa Shidai, or they say right after the Buddha's being there, being alive for 500 years, to encounter the Dharma, to actually be in the presence of the Buddha, the energy, the light, the qi, right? That Chinese word. Japanese would say kimochi nga wa taihen deshita, taihen datta so yo. That energy can banish your doubts. So you raise your eyes, you see the Buddha, the first thing you want to do is bow, they say. That the presence, the force de frappe in French, that light that the Buddha shines with, they say like a million suns, can clean your mind. And you bathe in it and you feel better than you've ever felt before, to say the least. When all those doubts are gone, all the worries are gone, all the thoughts of self-harming, the thoughts of maybe I really ought to go quit my job, go wandering, right? Seek my foot. You don't have any thoughts in front of the Buddha. It's that kind of energy. So what is going on? It's the nature uncovered. It's your human nature with ignorance, gone, right? Around Master Hua, I should speak for myself. I speak for myself. I sometimes had the feeling that I wanted to put on sunglasses. Being around somebody who has that much focused human nature available to them kind of gives you a sunburn sometimes. And there were other times when you had the feeling that Shifu wasn't there at all. He's right in front of you, and it was a boundlessness. Just, he wasn't there. And then in the next blink, there would be this laser beam focusing on you and your faults, your flaws and your faults. And then in the next blink, you felt this kindness, that it was okay to be just where you were. You could be a Buddha too. Or at least not so stupid, right? So that was the feeling around Shifu. And I imagine around the Buddha, it must have been something like that. I don't know. But my goodness, in a single thought, Buddha's accomplished right enlightenment. The unobstructed wisdom of meanings. He knows what? He knows the time. He knows the place. He knows the conditions and how to say it. That's the wisdom of meanings. This is meaningless to somebody else, totally meaningful to somebody. He knows exactly when and where and who. With the unobstructed wisdom of phrasing, he speaks of the differences in the realization of right enlightenment. So this is a tough one because why? What are the differences in right enlightenment? Well, if it's right enlightenment, it shouldn't be different, should it? It should be the same. But what I've here we could do another one, Sam, for our glossary, for our Master Hua's ABCs of cultivation. We should look at nirvanas, plural, and samadhis, plural, because as I listened to Shifu explain the Dharma, it became clear that there are many, many, many different levels of attainment. And nirvana comes in many flavors, many varieties. There's, for example, What's the difference between the dhyanas and arhatship? Big differences. First dhyana, second dhyana, third dhyana, fourth dhyana. First stage of arhatship, second stage of arhatship, third and fourth stage of arhatship. What's the difference between those and bodhi? Okay, there's bodhi, there's samyak sambodhi, there's sambodhi, there's samyak sambodhi, there's anuttara samyak sambodhi. What's the difference between all the different samadhis with their names? Good question, huh? They overlap in places and they're distinct in places. And one who has been there knows the ones behind him. One who has realized and certified to a stage doesn't know the stage ahead. So there is a vertical progression. How I understand it is, if you take it back to your nature, there's more covering and less covering. Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, Buddhahood, is completely uncovered. So we get hints of it in various parts of the sutra. For example, back in the 8th stage, the stage just before our 9th stage, our Bodhisattva had the potential to go wrong. Wan Kong reached that stage of what we've been calling dull emptiness, a sort of samadhi, a samadhi state, a semi-nirvana, where you never progress beyond it. And that's a dead-end road that one can realize if you don't take the Buddha's exhortation to continue to heart and you quit. The inside-out reality of patience when dharmas no longer arise stops you. It's just too hard. It's too scary, they say. So there are, quote, wrong stages of realization that stop you. What is the state of somebody who is called Ding Xing Luohan, an arhat whose nature is fixed? Are they unable to make the bodhi resolve? Good question. So our bodhisattva at this stage of the 9th stage, this point in the 9th stage, knows what? Knows the differences in the realization of right enlightenment. With the unobstructed wisdom of delight in speaking, the Dharma in each and every sentence could be spoken for limitless many eons without ever stopping. Oh boy. There is, I won't be able to come up. Maybe Jin Chuan, maybe Jin Fo, maybe Jin Wei, Jin He Shi, maybe, I know Jin Wei is up at Sudana Center. Maybe one of you can help me. There is a phrase, when you go to Guoqing Monastery on Tiantaishan in Zhejiang Province, there's a wall with the character meow written. Where's my meow? Not cat meow, not kitty meow, not that kind of meow. Different kind of meow. And it's this word, right? Wonderful meow. That's the word right there. Marvelous, wondrous, incredible, meow. Here's our word. And so Dharma Master spoke or explained the word wonderful for I don't know how long. My question is, who was it? Which Dharma Master? And how long did he explain the word meow? Is anybody there in Berkeley or anybody here in Gold Coast know?
I believe it's 智者大师.
Who was it?
智者大师.
Master Zhizhi.
And how long did he explain? 华经, 净佛师90天吗？ 90天，好像是90天。就讲这个妙字就90天。
智者大师讲妙字多久了？
90 days. That's about, I think Jing Fosha
90
myself,
days?
that's what I think we remember. I believe
You
if you
found
want
that
to
one
check
recently?
it, Master Hua's commentary on the Lotus Sutra, he talks about that.
Yes, that's where it's
So
from.
if one looks that up.
Great. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you. I knew I could count on you. Now, I have a, shoot, I don't have it with me. I wish I did. I have a picture of the character Miao inscribed on a wall at Guoqing Si. And that's, everybody goes by, points to it. It's a you know, it's a 3-foot character inscribed in stone, beautifully written, great calligraphy. And everybody walks by it and goes, ah, 智者大师讲妙字讲了90天了. So he explained one character, a 90-day Dharma talk. Hope you brought your sleeping bags. Hope you brought your flashlights. We're going to embark on a 90-day Dharma talk. And one character, that's what we're going to. So that is called delight in speech, right? Spoken of for limitlessly many eons without ever coming to an end. Now, some people could say, good grief, don't pull that one on me. I'm not going to hang around for 90 days listening to you talk about one word. Somebody else would say, sign me up. I can't wait. That's wonderful. That's meow, right? So that's hallmarks in the history of speaking Dharma. Oh boy, oh boy. So how hard is it to accord as our Bodhisattva who, it's the 慈无爱变 of this 10th one. He knows the times, he knows the places, and he knows the right meaning. He knows exactly when and where and to whom. So with that in mind, I had the opportunity to go to Hangzhou Lingyan Si already a year plus ago, and at the invitation of Master Guangchen to take part in their series on training monks to speak Dharma. Actually, Cliff accompanied me and Madalena, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. It's really a highlight for me to spend 5 days there with the same group of young monks and nuns from China. And they invited me to represent speaking Dharma in English. So it was called the Jiangjing Fa Shi Yingwen Pei Xun Ban, right? Chinese, the Dharma speaker, a class in English language Dharma speaking. And they assured me that the audience, there was, 50 or 60 monks and nuns, young, talented Sangha members who they tested to get there. And they said, sure, you speak in English. You want to speak in English so they can all get it. Because they can. They were tested for their English ability. And so I started out, in English. And after a while, after speaking for a while, I looked over the audience and there was a lot of, they were obviously not understanding my English. And it's probably my Midwestern accent. Their English teachers probably spoke with a Hong Kong or a British accent. So my English, they were floundering. So I thought, okay, I'll switch to Chinese. So I started to use more Chinese and I saw the eyes open up, and they're, of course, my Chinese brings other problems. That's not necessarily the best tool either. My Chinese is halting, to say the least. So the monks came to me after the first day and said, we really do want you to speak in English. Half and half when you have to explain it, but speak in English, please. That's why you're here. So it's like, oh, okay. Well, all right. I want to make the most of my opportunity here to provide something that these nuns can use. There were lots of half and half male and female Sangha members. So I started to talk, and my style, as people know, is California style. It's Master Hua inspired style, which is relaxed, I guess is one way to say it, not uptight. And I don't start with the Tian Tai Jiao Guan when I don't pay homage to, I pay respect to the traditional methods of speaking Dharma. You want to look at the Mingti. You want to understand the classifications and the categories of the title, and whether it's using people or dharmas or analogies. You spend a lot of time analyzing the title. Miao, the Miao Fa Lianhua Jing. No, the Da Fang Huang Fo Huai Yan Jing. Is it a 3-in-1 category, or is it? And this has been the stock and trade of the Jiao Zong. And those categories are one of the reasons why nobody lectures on sutras in China, because tradition says you must. And if you do, nobody wants to listen. Those who are not asleep will be gone. They'll leave, right? So I don't do that. I bow to it. I point to it. I say, it's available. Let's apply the sutra to your life. Let's investigate what's going on in your mind as it reflects in the sutra. And I want to make it come alive. So some of the people who hear that go, who does he think he is? Disrespecting the tradition. This won't do. You shouldn't listen to this because it's going to corrupt. You're going to want to, what are you going to do? Play rock and roll while you listen to the Dharma? You're going to play a guitar? What in the world has this come to? The Dharma is coming to an end. He's playing guitar in the sutra lecture. And so how do you get it right? Now, to take us back to Hangzhou, to Lingyan Si, we tried to strike a balance between lively and respectful to the tradition. And I wanted the monks who I was supposed to be teaching how to speak Dharma to understand that it's always a balance. And you have to have your fingers on the pulse of the time and the place and the audience in order to get the mix right. Very much like a chef. If you feed people foods they've never eaten before, even if they're cooked to perfection, half of them will go, thank you very much, that's very nice. No more. And yet, if you only serve the old favorites, it's people think, well, it's the same old. We were hoping something a little different tonight, So you have to know. Part of the job of speaking Dharma is in knowing your audience. The actual, I just came back from Sydney, and the best audience that we had in terms of liveliness was Tzu Chi. The Tzu Chi branch in Sydney, very active, very wholesome branch, had a camp for college students and high school students. And there they were. I came in, and I was one period in their weekend of camp. And this was a group that I have taught before in Silicon Valley, only here they were in Australia. And I know that group. And the topic was environment, Buddha Dharma and the environment. And I was able to use songs, let's leave for our children a planet clean and pure. Let's leave for our children a river running clear. And a song from the Tzu Chi songbook that I translated and sung to Master Zheng Yan, in fact. So I traded on that. And then I talked about my experience doing Buddhist Catholic monastic environmental commitment, and made that come, and and told some jokes and was able to talk about Game of Thrones and Marvel Comics universe for the world these young people live in. And there was a good response. There was definitely, nobody slept. And people were, and you could see the energy spark from chair to chair to chair, from mind to mind to mind. And it's that audience was one that I know and care about. I care that these young people find Buddha Dharma a tool they can use to understand their lives in their time. That's success in speaking Dharma, is if when you're done, the young people, the old people, go, that helps. I see further now. That connects pieces of my life that I'd never seen connected before, and that actually goes deeper than I've gone. It allows me to see further and deeper, both into my life and my relationships, to bring it back to my heart. I want to know more. That makes sense to me, right? That's the point. If you can do that, then whatever it took to get there was the expedient that you needed for that time, that place, and that audience. So, and I had another experience in Sydney that went totally flat. It just didn't connect. And I was trying hard. I was kind of warm up and working and saying it this way, saying it, and the audience was very polite, very respectful. No spark. They didn't know what I was saying, right? What? Who? Oh, he's still talking. I guess he's not done yet. Okay, we'll be respectful and polite. They're just, not the right chemistry. And our Da Fa Shi, our big Dharma master here in the Avatamsaka, is trying to reduce the number of falling flats and increase the number of sparks in his talk. And boy, this photo on my desktop, show that to a current monk in China, and if he's aware of the tradition, he will go, wow, look, I haven't seen so many faces of virtue, Da De Gao Seng, virtuous, lofty Sangha, noble Sangha members in one place before. And then they raise their eyes up to the second and third lines and they go, oh, look how young he was. Ha, ha, ha. I didn't realize he used to wear glasses like that, huh? Oh my God, oh man, right? So they see the current crop of monks in authority who at the time were, they were Xiao Heshang, they were the young monks in attendance to the seniors who were here. So indeed, it's a matter of time and place and audience. So we were talking today about storytelling. Today meaning earlier at the meditation group, and last night at our Dharma talk, our family Dharma gathering here at Gold Coast, talking about stories. And I remember in 2010, 9 years ago already, we had an opportunity to travel around the Gold Coast with a guide from the Kalwun Aboriginal Elders home here, which are our neighbors just down Benogan Road. It's a seniors home for the local Aboriginal Indigenous community. And some of their young people took us out, myself, Dharma Master Shure, and others, 9 years ago, around to various spots in the Gold Coast, and shared with us some of their stories, their old stories. And the excitement for me was seeing how these young people had picked up the tradition with both hands and made it theirs, and it was real for them, and it was important that they passed it on to us white folks, who, in my case, American white folks, who were anxious and willing and ready and wanted a lot to hear these stories. We were ready to, our cups were empty, hoping that the local folks would fill them with the lore of the land. And what the young woman, I remember, was our major speaker, she said, the stories in Australia are connected to place. That for us, the land and its inhabitants are the carriers of the story, the animals, the insects, the snakes, the fish, the birds, the mammals, the marsupials, right? The monotremes. All these animals have meaning and have a piece of the story of this land, Australia. And we are entrusted with the charge to keep the tradition alive. So that stayed with me to this day. The important part is keeping the stories alive. There are traditional ways of speaking of them, but the stories have to accord with the ability of contemporary people to hear the stories. So on one hand, you have to keep it authentic and true to the tradition. On the other hand, you have to adapt it to the times. And the Da Fa Shi, the great Dharma master, the speaker of the Dharma, needs to keep that balance. That's the job, that's the work. Traditional ways of speaking, but meaningful ways of communicating. And when I heard her say that, it occurred to me that I was in that very same position as our young woman who was taking us to these places. In the places are the key in the Gold Coast here and across Australia. So Master Hua gave us permission to carry the Dharma forward. He gave us permission to adapt the stories, because if we don't, they will die in the new culture. They won't make it to hybrid. They won't hybridize. They won't adapt to the new climate and soil and temperature and moisture and seasons and light, right? So the Dharma hybrid has to take root in the new soil if it's going to flourish. So the question for myself, and I'm looking right now at Jin Chuan and Jin Fo and Jin He Shi and Jin Wei, our Dharma, our Sangha community at BBM. I'm looking at myself. Actually, I am looking at myself in the camera here. Looking at myself as I say this, we have to know the old stories well enough that we can be sure our retelling of them is accurate and nothing has been lost, but we have to tell them in ways that enter the hearts of people in the 21st century. So that's the challenge. Do you know your stories well enough so that you can be sure that your retelling hasn't lost any part of it? But if you cling only to the way Master Hua spoke for Chinese audiences in the 20th century, nobody's going to want to hear it in the 21st century. So what did our Australian Aboriginal friend say to us? She said, "We come out of your dreams. We have been here forever. You all come and go, but our memory goes back to the beginning." And she said, it kind of gave me goosebumps. She said, "I think it must be kind of like your Buddha nature. Am I right? It's always around, and you can find it anywhere, but you still have to know where to look for it to emerge. Once you see it, there's nowhere that it's not. You have to look carefully, and then you realize it's been hiding in plain sight all along. We will tell you old stories, but the stories have always been here. They make you. They make us. We know who we are from the stories that we tell. We carry our values as humans in our stories. So that was unforgettable. And we've been discussing the power of stories that make the religion, right? And how it's actually helpful to go beyond the boundaries of the stories you first hear. There's a fear, I think, among people who don't travel far, who have not heard a lot, that if they hear any other story but the one that they were first told, that somehow they will lose part of their original story. And that is not my experience in interfaith at all. I first heard a Christian story. My next exposure came to Jewish stories, in fact, because my friends were Jewish growing up. And then I was introduced to the story of Zazen. And then I met Master Hua. And that story took me past the boundaries of Zazen into the story of the nature and precepts. The effect of precepts on the nature allows me to practice anyway: bowing, recitation, mantras, study, karma, service, and it all leads to deeper samadhi, and then the wisdom emerges, responding to conditions. So my journey I've heard many stories, sacred stories, and each one deepens my understanding of human nature and the Buddha nature that emerges from human nature transformed. So I would wish that for everyone listening, and may your nature awaken to all of those stories, and then tell them wide and long. Tell them at length everywhere you go, so that people can wake up together. All right. Jin Chuan, do you have any announcements? I know Marty's class is over. Who's announcing tonight? Xin Husher, are you? Who's our announcer?
Okay. So a couple of events. I think at the 16,000 Buddhas, and we will actually have a, let's see, right now it's finishing the 10,000 Buddhas repentance. And after DRBU graduation, which is on May 24th, commencement, the day before that, there's actually a Master Hua Memorial Symposium at DRBU, and I think it'll be on kind of what Reverend Heng Sure was talking about, the kind of ancient stories but implied in modern applications. So I'll be on May 23rd. And then following that, we have a family camp here at Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, which is on the 15th and the 16th. So if you're interested, please sign up
of
on
June.
Berkeley.
Of June, that is.
Yeah, June 15th and 16th. Please
Yep.
sign up. And then there's a retreat at Sudana Center led by Dharma Master Heng Sure and Doug Powers from June 22nd to June 29th. And so that was usually very popular. It'll be on, I would say, looking at this question of meaning in life, how that limits us or frees us. And then on the 29th and the 30th, there's a global Buddhist conference at UC Berkeley, which will have probably, maybe 50 or 100 Buddhist groups from the area, potentially 2,000 or 3,000 people showing up. It's kind of like a Buddhist festival. Reverend Heng Sure will be speaking at quite a few of the events. And we also have a guest performer, Imi Oi, coming on Sunday. That's June 30th. So if people are interested, you can sign up, I think, at aftermindfulness.org. Aftermindfulness.org.
Is that it? That's the, let's see. I'm
Yeah, I
on
believe it's
here.
aftermindfulness.org.
Aftermindfulness.org.
Yeah. So
After. Okay. So
Really?
what
How
happens
about you
after
talk about it?
mindfulness? Mindlessness. Let's see. I know it's a nice website. When we get there.
Mindfulness. You have to put www. Does that work?
Is it GBC 11 also?
Yeah.
Was that it? Let's see what happens when you type GBC 11. Nothing. Guardian outdoor bark control. Ultrasonic bark. No, I don't. Okay, well, we'll trust it. I'll let you all go look for that.
It's aftermindfulness.org.
Okay, aftermindfulness.org. Great. Please go investigate. Are we good? Jinchuan, is that it?
Tomorrow we have YC's Tongling style Buddha recitation in the morning and afternoon, beginning at 7:30.
Okay.
And then on 7 July, Ime Ui will be having a musical performance, hopefully with other musicians, an afternoon or evening of Dharma music at Berkeley Monastery as well.
Okay,
July
Ime
7.
Ui, evening of Dharma music, July 7. Yep.
And then there's a couple more. Very full summer. So if you're interested, there's the Buddha Root Farm, which I believe is already full, but you can join the waiting list. That's July 14th to the 20th. And then the Guanyin session at the 10,000 Buddhas will be from July 20th to 27th. So if you're interested in any of those events, please go to berkeleymonastery.org. At the Guanyin retreat will be at the extension.drbu.org. So if anyone would like to join, please sign up. Yeah. Oh, and Buddha's birthday is coming up on May 12th. So if people are interested in going up to CTTB, May 12th, you can bathe the Buddha. If you're not able to make it to CTTB, I believe Sichi is also doing a lot of bathing the Buddha ceremonies in the area. They have a 3-day-in-1 event.
Okay. Yeah, we want to have clean Buddhas.
May I make an announcement
Thank you for that. Good.
For the Dharma radio?
Not yet. Oh, is it ready, Jerry?
Yes.
Okay. So, let me ask you, Jerry, first of all, how many listeners? Can you count them up? How are we doing on YouTube?
Let me take a look. 36 right now.
There is 36 right now. Okay. How many in 30 in the Chinese side? Good. We beat them. YouTube beat them. Good. Some of them are actually watching YouTube, so that's the crossover. Okay. dharmaradio.org is launching. It is a internet radio destination for you so that you can listen to Buddhist songs, Buddhist music, and Buddhist talks, Dharma talks, dharmaradio.org. It's a brand new, we're working on the programming so that people can tune in. Here we are, Dharma Radio, and you can hear podcasts, music, Dharma talk ceremonies. We're hoping that we'll be able to broadcast ceremonies from CTDB, maybe from Berkeley. Here we go. Live DJ. Oh, it's actually my lecture is being, there we go. My lecture is on at the moment. But if you go to this destination, you'll be able to select from a variety of programming. There's a full schedule right here. Looks really pretty. Music in the Dharma, Chan Chronicles, Great Compassion Mantra, etc. Evening ceremony, live lecture from Berkeley Monastery, morning ceremony, meditation with nature sounds. That's all available to you at dharmaradio.org at no extra cost. Mail in the $5. You tell your friends about dharmaradio.org and suggestions for improvement. We need to work out a Creative Commons license for all our content so that we give permission for people to reproduce it, but only with our generous copyright intact, right? That's the way to do it. So Creative Commons is something to... Jin Chuan, maybe you can look into that. How do we use a Creative Commons license to copyright?
Okay, I can look into that.
Okay, yeah, good. Dharma Seed is a good example. They have done so. That's another site. I think Abhagiri has done the same, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a wholesome way to retain our rights and give them away, but encouraging people not to carelessly reproduce them or make them their own or charge for them. That's the idea. All right, let us dedicate merit. Yes? Next week? Oh, oh, good. Okay, I've just been told here by our staff that next week I'm going to have to ask Berkeley Monastery to cover this lecture. Why? We will be bathing the Buddha in this very spot. Could we move it? The refuge ceremony. That's right. At this time, after lunch next week, I will be administering the refuges and precepts here. So I won't be able to lecture. It didn't occur to me. So maybe Wu Liang Shou Jing, or maybe you can work out, but I won't be able to lecture on the Avatamsaka next week because of refuges and precepts here in Gold Coast. Okay? So if you could, we'll talk about it and find out who can substitute the lecture. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Okay, time to transfer the merit. Here we go. Every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. All right. You want to lead them in bowing, and I'll see you all next week. See you all in 2 weeks. Amitofo.
Everyone, please stand.